Alright, welcome everyone to round 9 of the Trackstars Formula 3 series. We are 9 rounds in, as I said, and 2 rounds to go. 1 round at the end of this one, and we shall be finished our Formula 3 season. It's come around so fast, and it's nearly at the end. It's pretty crazy at the moment, but as always, I'm joined here by my fellow commentator in Mr. N Spud. What is going on, my friend?
Yes, good evening, Ryan. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, like you said, we are up to round 9 of the Formula 3 Championship. It felt like literally 2 weeks ago that I was commentating the first round at Road Atlanta, where we saw an awesome race between drivers. I believe it was Mark Dargan, who was the privateer that joined us in the early seasons of Formula 3. Before Carter took out that final round, that final race victory. It was very good entertainment and very good racing all the way from round 1 back in the USA. And now we're here in Germany for the German Grand Prix here at Nürburgring. And it's going to be an exciting night tonight. We've only got our 6 drivers in the session so far, but, you know, the small numbers have proven to produce some great racing, as we definitely saw in a few rounds, especially at Suzuka. And I believe this other one was at Fuji, where we had a small attendance. Formula 3 has been a great success at least in my opinion, here at Trackstars.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's been great this year. The boys have just been putting in the hard work, and then we're getting the results there. But I gave the boys a bit of a benchmark time there in practice, as you can see there with a 2 minutes flat .710. So it might be close. I think Burton just got a bit spooked there with that 1.5 tenths purple there. So yeah, it's should be good, I think. Obviously, as you know, a couple of us have just come off the Nürburgring 24-hour last week, so some of us are a little bit familiar with majority of the GP circuit. So F2 might get a little bit spicy come later tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. F2 is going to be a spectacular event to watch, and I'm looking forward to doing the commentary for you and for the other guys. But right now, we're getting ourselves ready for qualifying for Formula 3 for round 9 of the German Grand Prix.
Yeah, definitely. And I notice as well the wind here is definitely one that will play out into the hands of the drivers, because the cars are really wind dependent, I think. I did notice that. I was talking to Purden earlier, and he did say he did do a 59 in practice. So, you know, the wind may come into play. You know, such as turn 1, maybe down the Dunlop curve and through the Schumacher S's. It could definitely play into parts here. Even around this corner here, if you don't get the turn in, the cars are really, I don't know, they're really understeery, and with the bop, it kind of struggles there, not being able to adjust the brake bias, which will kind of help the turn in on the car. So I think, you know, that may make the driver struggle a little bit, but then obviously that's where you kind of need to, you know, on the go make some changes on how you drive the car and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely, and there is a bit of a cross breeze going from left to right as you go onto that main straight. So it's going to be very tough, especially going through to turn 1. I remember last year out when we were having the touring cars, the touring car. Oh, actually, I believe it was the Formulas that we ran here last year in the rain. And my goodness, if we thought Formula racing was sketchy enough in the dry, imagine if putting it on the rain around this track. I believe it was the highest setting that we put on. And as we see there, Purden gets himself a half second. Very easy to do around this track, but yeah, the cross breeze, especially with wet weather, wasn't a great thing to have. But you know, well, at least for these guys here, it's dry running, not a single cloud in the sky, DJ. It's beautiful weather here in Germany, and as we speak, it's like now, because we're running the German Grand Prix, it's actually in sync with the real life 24-hour racing.
Yeah, I did notice that. I haven't been able to really catch much of the running of that of the N24, but yeah, that wet weather, we had touring cars in the wet weather as well, so, you know, a year on and we've got clear weather, so I'm pretty thankful. But I don't know about you, but in the Formulas, I was coming down the front straight, doing onwards of 310, 320 Ks, get a crosswind, hit a puddle, and I was pretty much facing the pit wall, so it was definitely scary.
At least. I think at least everyone got at least one sort of sideways moment coming onto that pit track, because that was really sketchy. And as we see there, Purton really stamping it on the right pedal, just trying to get the traction down. But he's got a half-second penalty, so set yourself a bank a lap in, and you might be able to get yourselves further up in the qualifying for that second lap, so you can be able to see the pluses and minuses through the delta. But we see the driver in Hedges currently sitting third in the championship, only a few 100 points behind his rival in James from WTC Racing. But this is where it becomes really spicy, DJ. Hedges has actually only missed one round so far in the Formula 3 Championship. And at the end of this round, we do apply the drop rounds, where we take away drivers' lowest performance throughout the season, and we take away that round, and then we come into round 10 next week at Brands Hatch Grand Prix, where we'll be able to see the final standings of what could be, a championship winning drive for Purton, but also could be a spicy finish to P2 in the championship.
Yeah, it's definitely going to spice it up here. I'll just chuck the standings up on the screen here in the bottom right. So, you can see here that the standings are very, very close up the front. Drop rounds come into play. I did do a bit of a draft for F2 and F3, and I can tell you, it's not over till the end of round 10, to be honest. I was looking at it, and the drop rounds definitely may help or hinder his driver.
Yeah, it plays a big curveball, because I noticed as well, as we get, as I'll mention in the F2 coverage later on, that a couple of drivers that did miss a round early in the season, including yourself, obviously you have put yourself right into contention, as we see Hedges come through to the start-finish straight, currently on provisional pole position with a 2:2, before we see Carter straight away with a 2:1.8 behind, ahead of his teammate, just the 2:1.9. But yeah, as you see drivers that just do miss that first round or miss a round in the championship, they give themselves a bit of an advantage, especially when it comes to that final round.
I know all about that one, my friend. And people that, as you said, if you may miss a round, you use that 0 point round as your drop round. So theoretically, the points that myself have in the F2 standings, that's my points that I'm sitting on. So it'll definitely spice things up. And I think I worked it out last week. It's roughly about 130-ish points between me and Curry, and it's about 100 between Burke and Curry. So it's really on at the top there. That's obviously drop rounds included, but honestly, the drop rounds definitely spice things up. And I think, as you said, the 0 drop round may come into your favour. And for me, to be honest, at the moment, it's definitely working in my favour. But also pure pace as well and performances. Or James with a bit of Tokyo drifting going on there, kept it out of the wall, so that's good. Does a bit of grass cutting. It's definitely played out to my advantage at the moment. But I think these F3 guys are really coming to grips with the car. I did a bit of practice before, and I'm not a fan at all.
Well, that just shows you the class of the F3 drivers, as they've done 9 rounds in this series, and you can imagine the drivers putting all the hard work in throughout the week just to get accustomed to these cars and really find that perfect balance between throttle application and steering input. As we see a driver in Purton go currently provisional pole position with a 2:1 flat, with Carter just right behind him, 0.082 behind Purton. So these two rivals really been duking it out, hammer and tong, especially when it comes to on-track battles. The last time we called these guys on the on-track battle was last time out, I believe, was at Spa-Francorchamps. Not Spa, I believe it was the Nürburgring. I'm sorry, we are at the Nürburgring. Hey, let me pick myself up. We'll go at the Red Bull Ring. That's what I was going to say. So we saw those two really duking it out there at the Red Bull Ring, and as well for the, I believe, the last time was the San Marino Grand Prix at Maggiore, that both Purton and Carter really producing some great racing and great battles. And it just shows that, unfortunately, had we seen Carter a little bit more in this championship season, I think he's only missed 2 rounds, we definitely could have been seeing a really spicy end as we can see Hedges, as we look to the replay, just trying to get out of the way of cars, but I think he just gassed it up a bit too much. And yeah, just caught it on the curb. It's a good save there. But yeah, definitely it could. I think it kind of robbed us a little bit more of a championship fight between MSR and WTC Racing and Purton and Carter.
Yeah, for sure. I did spot Carter go nearly 2/10 purple through that first sector, so he may be on here for a high 2 minutes. So I think he did get a bit of assistance there from Hedges in a slip, but he goes 6/10 down, so he must have had a really bad run through the Shoemaker S's there. But yeah, Purton, he's on fire at the moment, so yeah, it's not. James as well. He's probably the closest contender, and he's sitting down here in 4th, 8/10 off the lead. So, in obviously the fastest lap with just under 2 minutes to go. So the guys will get one more lap in. So this is their chance to give it everything and see what they can pull out of the car. So, yeah, I think James kind of really needs to tighten up his helmet and say, all right, where can I find the speed in this car and try and take it to Purton, because at the moment Purton seems to be on top. So.
We look down to 5th place. We have Richard Robertson, the team owner of Robo Sport Racing, currently sitting in P5. Not going quick on this lap, but sitting on a 2:02.4. So as well, we did see with Robertson, he was an early contender in the early parts of the Formula 3 Championship, but took a bit of an extended break in the middle stint where we didn't get to see him as much. But it was great to see Robbo back in the car, as we do have our late contender in Liam joining us from It's Racing Esports. And once we get the qualifying session, we'll cancel out the race and we'll get him onto the grid as a start in P7. But Robinson in 5th and Smith from FR Bono Racing sitting in 6th place, 3.2 behind Purton. As we do see there, Purton in 1st place. He actually did go off not long ago, so I just caught that in the background there. So he just ran a little bit too deep going into the corner, and that is going to be his qualifying done and dusted. But we will have to keep an eye on cards as he's coming through. Oh, you actually went past the timing sector, so he'll come through the timing sector here. No, that's not that one.
After the right hand, after it gets
right
off
hand.
the street.
Yep, correct. Yeah. So we can see Carter coming through on his final lap. Let's see what margin he's got. He's actually 0.1 up, so this could be a very solid lap here for Carter. He just needs to execute this chicane really well, because it's very tricky. You can break deep and really cut as much of that inside and outside of the curbing. But he looks to take a very conservative there. So very conservative approach into the curve. And as he comes through to Coca-Cola for the final time, can he get himself up onto pole position? Can he change that P2 to P1 and get himself yet another pole position for WTC Racing? It is not a pole position. Oh, he just misses out by 0.056 off his personal best. Hedges doesn't improve. What about James in 4th place? Does he find improvements? He does. So he found 3/10 on his lap. That puts him up into P3. And Hedges is down demoted to P4. Robinson is still hanging on into P5. We'll wait and see what his time is coming through to the start-finish line as he executes that chicane. But as I did see there as well, James was running a bit wide through that chicane. But yeah, I'm very interested to see that Carter took a very conservative approach through that chicane. As we see Robinson cross the line, is he finding improvements? No, he doesn't.
Yeah, he did. He was very conservative there. It looks like he went and shifted down into 1st gear, so that was probably not kind of really what he wanted. You can take that in 2nd gear if you do get the line right, but obviously he may have, thought he took the line wrong. But yeah, anything is possible, and yeah, as you said, it did appear that he took it a bit conservative. So did pay dividends to him in that last sector. He did lose what would be 3/4 there, so just through that chicane. So it can be the old thing. You can either gain 3 or 4/10, or you can lose it in a simple matter of 2 corners.
Yes, absolutely. So as we take a little quick break, we might be able to try and see if we can get Liam onto the grid. So we'll have to cancel out this qualifying session and the race and set the grid manually. So I'll let you take in the reins with that. But I guess in a way we could say currently on pole position it is Purton, followed ahead by Carter. James on that last lap just took that advantage away from Hedges, who will be starting in position 4. So it's the 4 usual suspects up in the front row, up in the front 2 rows. and it's going to be seeing how far Purton can pull that advantage, because Carter, it looks to be very strong around this track, but Purton just at the right time managed to get that lap in before Carter could set that before Carter could set a better lap time and getting into the 2 minutes. So we'll wait and see how we go, as we see now Gator in Liam joining us on the grid. So we have our 7 drivers here, so fantastic season. But also we'd like to say a big thanks to our Formula 3 drivers for sticking it out throughout this whole season. As we always say with our drivers, if it's not for them, we wouldn't have a series. So these guys have done an amazing job to be able to provide us a series, a stream, and some amazing battles. And usually I always like to say, DJ, when it comes to the lower divisions, whether it's Division 2 or Division 3, I have a feeling that's where we see the best racing here at Trackstars.
Oh yeah, for sure. You know, you see the racing. You know, sometimes the drivers aren't as confident as what the guys in the top are. So you know, the guys very heavily dependent on their performances in the racing. So you know, it's definitely good to see. And yeah, as you said, sometimes it produces better racing than second tier and main tier. So you know, it's good that they're getting out there, and as you said, expanding the series for us, and you know, keeping us going and making us probably one of the top 4, top 5 leagues in all of Australia. So you know, we're starting to get some international drivers in, which is definitely a positive for us. Obviously, there is a little bit of netcode, but having some international drivers, obviously like Devlin, Kuman, obviously Isoscale. We did have Danny R back in the Enduros last year, but yeah, so we'll wait and see on how this goes.
As we get ourselves ready for the sprint race, 6 fast laps here around this 5.1 kilometer circuit that is located in Nuremberg. But Nürburgring, it's going to be Purton versus Carter, just like we see it. It's 5 lights and we are underway. Purton gets the perfect launch up going into turn 1, but here comes the danger zone going down the hill, trying to brake as late as you can, and Purton takes the inside line, covers, as we see Hedges right behind there, made a vicious move on James, and he gets himself ahead. He's going to go around the outside of Carter. No, he doesn't, so he's going to stick back into 3rd place, but that's a solid start there for Hedges to get himself ahead of his rival in James there. So the MSR boys looks like they've managed to get that start procedure down pat, and that has promoted Hedges into position 1, as we see Liam go into the chat and apologise to somebody, so I'm not sure if we might be able to see what happened, but as we see Liam come through to make a move on Smith, unfortunately no he doesn't, but it looks like he's looks to be more or less settled in at the moment, as we have Purton leading Carter, leading Hedges, and James with Robinson, Smith and Liam in with our top 7 drivers and duking it out on the first half of this opening lap here for round 9.
Yeah, it was definitely an exciting one there. As Gator goes on the inside, sorry, Liam goes on the inside there to take the position of Smith there through, I believe that's what they call double curve. I haven't changed it on me. Smith goes really wide there through the sand, so it's not kind of really where you want to go, mate. You want to keep it on the black stuff, but yeah, it was a very surprising start.
So look, sorry, I just looked into the background. I just saw Hedges run wide through one of the corners there, and he's just actually lost the position to James. So all the good work that he made at the opening lap, unfortunately, is going to be devoting himself back down to P4. As we've seen Purton really skating through on the exit of the NGK chicane there, and he's really just trying to get the hammer down and really just try and eke a margin over Carter. He's actually done a really good start, a really good job in that opening stint. As we see Hedges actually drop back down behind Robinson. So Hedges is really struggling since the exit of the going into the back straight, and he's really just he's now dropped himself back down to 5th place. They've got themselves a good margin, the top 5 compared to Liam in 6th and Smith in 7th. But yeah, Hedges is just on the back foot at the moment. Just needs to keep his cool and just try and find his way forwards, try and get past Robinson, and then eventually try to get past James.
Yeah, that was actually a good move there by Robinson. He did a bit of a crisscross coming through last corner onto the main straight. So yeah, that was nice to see, but probably unfortunate for Hedges and not kind of where he wants to be in that VOMSR X2019 Junior. So yeah, it's, as you said, maybe he can pull his belts a bit tighter and just go, all right, settle myself in, get into a rhythm, and try and push through the field. But we got Sirik in the chat. Shame there are only 7 runners. Definitely, mate. It would be good to see if this was a full grid, but you know, we got to start somewhere. And having 7 runners, we've roughly had about 7 pretty much all season. So you know, we've had a couple of runners. Unfortunately, we did have Jay Gray, drop out of the series during the week. So definitely unfortunate. He's always welcome back, and yeah, so we are missing Kuman this week as well, so that's a bit unfortunate too. So wait and see on who we'll get for the final round. I do believe they're at Brands Hatch.
Yes, correct. So that'll be the last round. They'll be following the Formula Track Stars at Brands Hatch Grand Prix. As I did see there, that person did pick himself up a half second going through the Michael Schumacher S's, and he's just dropped a little bit further back behind Robinson. So it's a little bit stale at the moment between the gaps of the front 5 runners, or actually between all the 7 runners. Actually, with Persic betting himself at 1.5 over Carter, who's got 1.8 over James, who then has 2.1 over Robinson, who then has 3.4. So very well spread out amongst the fields here. So you can definitely see in the qualifying stages that Burton looks just to have that little bit of an upper edge over Carter, but Carter did show some great pace through qualifying. So, and usually we've seen throughout the season, Carter usually has best pace coming towards the back end of the stints of the back end of the racing, at back end of the feature race. So look for him to be making a charge in that feature race. We've seen Person really drift the car, just try and exploit the track limits, which I guess in a way it's not really a feat in any racing game that I've actually played around the Nürburgring.
Just pushing off to the left-hand side there after that little section.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, you can drop onto the green stuff, run a little bit wider there, but if you do go, I believe, 4 wheels off the second part of the green stuff, you will get half second, but it's a very fine line whether or not you do get one or you don't get one.
Okay, there you go.
Trust me, I test my track limits. And even coming up here, you can go onto the green jazz. You know, so there's green up on the right hand side. You can actually put your wheel up there, as you can see. Hedges does it, and on exit too. So if you find the track limits, you will find time. But you know, it's obviously the old thing. If you try and find the track limits, there's a potential to get the penalty. So it depends if you want to try and find the time to whether or not you want to cop the penalty, or if you want to go a bit conservative. So yeah, it's definitely 50-50 chance on do I find time or do I go conservative. So yeah, I think you know me as much as I do, that I try and find track limits and push them as much as I can.
Yeah, and especially I can imagine especially through the chicane as well, you see a lot of drivers just really taking full advantage by just trying to cut as much as they can without exploiting the in-game penalty. And especially with these cars, that it's that once the front end of the car just lifts off, there's no point of return to try and just steer the car right, and you start to put yourself onto the grass on the left-hand side. But as the order still resumes, it is the top 7 as we've seen over the past few laps there. We're seeing a few closing margins between the WTC boys in Carter and James, but I guess in a way for Carter's race, I have a feeling he's just kind of racing just for pride. He's not in any championship battle, but he's holding himself up nicely in P2 as we have James actually closing the gap a bit. But I wonder if in a way that he might have to, if you think there might be a little bit of intercoms between the 2 teammates and say that they might have to play a bit of a team game to actually potentially swap positions, because when it comes to the feature race, it could help James pull through and maybe get the jump over Person coming into turn 1.
Yeah, well, realistically, if you think about it, Carter is battling as well with Robinson. He's only 100 points ahead, so you know he's in a battle with Robinson, but as well as you said, James is in a battle with Purden. So honestly, if it was me, I'd be like, well, you know, I'm still here, but it's kind of a little bit out of reach, and Purden's still that far out in front. Just race your race and grab the 2 points. So, you know, it's interesting to see, but especially with third and fourth in the standings, Carter unfortunately has had 2 no-scoring rounds, where Hedges has only had 1. So, you know, I think Carter did kind of hinder himself a little bit by getting that 0-point round, because if he didn't, I think he would be definitely in a battle for third place.
Yeah, absolutely, and I would have loved, like I mentioned earlier, would have loved to have seen where Carter would have placed himself in the championship, especially in this championship battle with Person. As we see Person pick himself a half-second penalty, but probably that would have potentially have been through the chicane. That is actually run wide through the Mercedes-Benz arena. As you do run wide there, you do lose a lot of traction coming into on the exit of the Mercedes arena, but he hasn't picked up a penalty there, as I would have been actually very surprised if he actually ran wide on that right-hand side and picked himself another half-second penalty. But he's got a half to burn, and with these cars, especially on the back straight, it will compromise his straight line speed coming into what will be the final lap on the next lap. But Purden just has to try and keep it clear head, just look forward, don't look at the guys behind you, because as we know, between Carter and Purden, they are very hard races, and they both want to be scoring victories. They want to be coming at the end of the race, at the end of the round, try and get the most victories in this Formula 3, this inaugural Formula 3 championship. But he's just closing that gap. So Carter is actually less than a second now. So Purden's actually really struggling, and he's going to be coming up to the penalty burn zone pretty soon. And it's going to be very close between the 2 drivers here. Now we're actually getting some on-track battle here. So Purden's about to serve his penalty right now. And where is Carter relative? And can he close the gap before the NGK chicane? He's right there. Goes around the outside. Will he be able to hold around the outside? He might have to do an over and under. But Purden runs deep, and he's lost the lead there. So Purden has gone a little bit too ambitious through the chicane, and he's lost position 1 to Carter, and now he's coming under pressure from James in third place. As we see the replay with Purden, there you go, just ran a little bit too deep, a little bit too overconfident at the braking zone, just try to fend off from Carter, but unfortunately for him, he loses the lead in the sprint race. What looked to be a certain P1 and running a very comfortable lead over the last few laps. Unfortunately, a half-second penalty and dirty tyres really affected his momentum on lap 5, and now James is within striking distance to take P2 away from his championship rival.
Oh, James gets real handsy there. Looks like he got a bit of a ripple strip, so he's done well to save that. But yeah, that was handsy for Purden. He did go defensive there. Probably not the best decision. I would have taken the racing line there, but you know, it's all obviously 50-50, make a decision as it happens. But he did go a little bit shallow on the line there into the chicane, which, you know, may have hindered him, as well as breaking at the same point, if not a little bit later than he normally got. But no harm done. He's only 1.5 off, but yeah, as you said, he's coming under battle here from James, so runs a little bit deep there into that corner there. But you know, I think there's probably like 3 or 4 lines you can run through that corner. It's definitely not one kind of specified line through that Dunlop curve there that you'd have to run to make the time. It's definitely 3 or 4 lines there, you know. Late apex, hold the inside. It's definitely interesting.
Yeah, exactly, and you can see some demonstrations through some drivers, as we did see Purden as he exited the Dunlop curve, that he actually managed to eke some time closer to Carter, but it's not going to be enough to conclude the sprint race here for round 9 of the Track Stars Formula 3, and for the final time for the NGK chicane. Purden goes a little bit hesitant again, so he's really struggling to get the car through the chicane, but for the final time on lap 6 of 6 for the sprint race, it's going to go to Carter for WTC Racing, taking the victory, and congratulations to the WTC man taking out the victory, with Purden in second, James sitting in third, Robinson in P4, and Hedges, a not a strong performance in 5th place. Did get a personal best lap there with a 2-minute 1.3, so he did have some pace to burn. So that could be some good signs for him come the feature race. And as we look down to the back of the grid, we see Smith in P6 and then the latecomer in Liam rounding up our 7 drivers here tonight for the sprint race here in Germany at the Nürburgring Grand Prix. Carter takes yet another victory here at Trackstars Formula 3, and I think we're going to need to get our stats out this season, and we need to actually see who's actually got the most victories, because that'll be a very interesting stat to reveal at the end of the season.
Yeah, I think it will be an interesting one. Purden with the fastest lap there too. So, yeah, it's definitely been a mix between Carter, Purden, and James for the race win. I do think Hedges may potentially have gotten one during the season too. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, it's kind of been, one for you, one for me, one for you, one for me between Carter and Purden, and then James has thrown a little win in there too. So I think it's probably dependent on, drivers having their track and what they like and what they don't like. So, it's probably, up to them and how they perform. But yeah, it's been pretty good racing so far for these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we run through to the results, we have Carter taking the sprint race yet again. So the man that was putting in some awesome racing throughout the early stages of Formula 3, unfortunately missing 2 rounds in the championship, but takes yet another victory here, racing for pride for WTC Racing in first. Purton with that late hiccup on lap 5, really struggling to get his concentration, and just ran a little bit too deep through the chicane here, the NGK chicane. And yeah, you could definitely, it felt a little bit gutted over the team radio, just for the team, just very sympathetic. But I guess for a man like him, he's all about the feature race. This is where the big points are. DJ, 200 points, a maximum here. So get the perfect weekend. You scored 300, but it's going to be up to Purton to try and get his head down. But as we take a quick break here, we will come back to you guys very shortly, which will be for the feature race, 12 laps around the Nürburgring. So stay tuned, grab yourself some food, grab a drink, and join us in a few minutes' time as we go racing for the feature race of round 9.
Alright, so this week the track preview is going to be from myself. It's going to be from the my fellow co-commentator in Nick Patasso. So we'll jump on board here and watch him have a little bit of a whirl around in his Trackstars Formula 3.
So I've managed to take the keys away from Purton for this one. So thank you very much, Purton, for allowing me to drive your 91.
There's an apex there. There's an apex there.
I'm trying very hard to go through the Mercedes arena without any sound. So you got to cut me some slack. But yeah, but essentially this first part of the track is very, very interesting. It's all basically a one line. You can't really go from those overtakes, especially with the undulating curves. And I guess in a way you can't. It's really hard to make overtakes around these sections because it's all kind of like a one line. It's all about just looking at that driver ahead and thinking, well, how much entry and exit speeds can I carry through? Especially when it comes down to here to the Dunlop curve, as we explained here, you can run it wide and then take a late apex through there and then run it onto the curve. So run it onto the gravel trap. But as we have seen from a few drivers so far in this feature race, as we go through the one for Shoemaker S's, a different line can vary. And I think we actually saw that in the real world down at Simmons Plains for the supercars. You definitely see some drivers taking a different approach through the turn 4 chicane, to the turn 4 hairpin. And you can definitely see some very speeds between our drivers. But as they're coming through to the Advan, Bogan is really just foot flat to the floor and then coming through to the chicane. So we'll see how late we can go into the chicane here. We're going to 100 meter forward. And then going through the second gear. Click the first, click the second. And stuck in third, bogged down through the third gear. And then coming through to Coca-Cola for the final time, and that is going to be an attempted lap there. There's Ian Purton's 91 MSR VL Racing entry.
Yeah, not too bad of a lap there, but I think one of the main overtaking options is obviously into turn 1, we're going through now, but then turn 5, I believe. So after this first section, the right hand, and then it'll run onto the left before the little left loopy right coming into the Dunlop curve. So just here, you kind of want to set yourself up, see if you can get a bit of a move on someone. Brake deep, go down the inside on the left hand side here, and then coming through here, you can do a switchback. So you brake a bit earlier, get a bit of an early apex, early on the gas, sit in the slip, and then brake really deep. So, you know, there's a lot of various things you can do in setting up, coming into the curves. You know, take a wider line here, tighter line. Either way, as you can see, Nick taking a late apex, getting on the gas early, nice exit there. So, yeah, definitely.
Much better.
Yeah, that was much better there. Should be flat here as long as you get the line right. If you get the line wrong, you will have to lift. Yeah, it's nice run in there, late on the brakes here, should back it into third gear. If he doesn't miss a brake marker, we'll nearly run wide.
Got too much marbles on the tyres there.
You got car behind you following him. But yeah, so various lines you can run, different speeds you can get, so it's
and this is the part that we saw with Purton. He really took this inside line a little bit too narrow, so then once he got to this curving here, really compromised that, and they just unfortunately just cut the curb through that part there. So he really he got a little bit too much marbles, too much tire excess marbles on his car, and it really just compromised that entry through the chicane. And yeah, I think that's definitely where he lost the race, unfortunately. But hopefully he picks himself up for the feature race here coming up very shortly.
Yeah, definitely. I believe the boys are ready to go. We've got Griffo in the chat. Welcome, my friend. Hopefully we'll see you back next week. Back from Tasmania this week, we'll be in next week. So we'll see you back on the grid next week, which will be nice. So, yeah. But we are ready here for the 12-lap race around the Nürburgring GP for the feature race. Big job, 200 points up for grabs for this one. So it's all to play for coming into the end of round 9 with one round and one race to go. So we'll wait and see what happens and what's in store for this one.
Absolutely right. Well said, Ryan. But as we come through to the start procedure, we have Carter starting on pole position after winning the sprint race. The 6 laps now turns to 12. Can Purton get the jump over cars. As we've seen, the MSR drivers got some really good start procedures compared to the WTC boys, but the lights are green and we are underway. Carter gives himself a really nice jump there, but as we look to cut towards Perzu, who's coming to attack on the inside, he's got himself a really good launch as we see some drivers coming through. We see Smith making up a few positions there. I think he was a little bit later on the brakes there, but he's up into P4. And we do see Robertson has dropped down the order down to P7. So something happened to him on that race start. Looks like it was something between one of the drivers in Hedges and Robertson. As we see as well, Hedges actually dropped down quite a fair few positions now. He's down into P6, Ryan. So this is a position that we're not really familiar seeing Hedges in early in this stint. And we're seeing Smith up into P4. So the late move into turn one actually paid off very nicely for Smith for FR Racing.
Yeah, I think Robinson went pretty hesitant there. He was on the outside, so he probably didn't want to get T-boned from a car on the inside. So he just hung it out wide, waited for all the guys to get through and put it there. But yeah, Smith went for a very heroic turn one move there off the start, and he didn't hit another car, so it paid off. So all is well for him, mate. But yeah, solid work there, and definitely be good to see if Smith can move up and challenge those guys for the lead. So probably something we haven't really seen Smith do. He's kind of challenged the guys for the lead. I do believe Seaside was probably his best overall performance, as he runs really wide through there, misses the apex on the right hand side. So yeah, Seaside was probably his best performance if I remember correctly. But yeah, all Hedges with a half second there, so he may have just shook up the Schumacher S's there, or possibly the left right after that. But yeah, probably not what Hedges wants to be. He runs deep on the brakes there too.
Wow. Oh, he's really compromising. It's just turning out not to be a good weekend for Hedges. The race where he needed to make it all count, especially in this championship fight between him and James, and he's now been overtaken by Liam from It's Racing Esports. And with Hedges over a half-second penalty, I think this is a round he'll definitely want to forget, as he's trying to squeeze Gator through to the wall there, but Gator's not budging through whatsoever. Liam's going to go for a late move going into turn one, deep on the brakes, and he spun the car around. So too much confidence on the brakes there, thinking he could brake a little bit too deep there, and unfortunately for him, just too late on the brakes, and just applies the handbrake just to try and stop the car. It made it work, but unfortunately that demotes him down to last place in seventh. But as we look back to the front, we see Purton a little bit under pressure from James now. So the top two in the championship sitting second and third. Carter's running away with it with 1.6 second gap between the two drivers, and Purton's coming through into P2. James has ran a little bit of a compromised run. As we look into the background, Smith has just gone onto the gravel trap, and he's going to be coming under pressure from Hedges. So it's a very good start, a very good position for Smith to be in. But like you said, Ryan, it's definitely not a position he's very familiar with, being up towards the front.
Yeah, his confidence might be getting to him there. Obviously, we haven't seen him up the front really, and he's kind of like, well, what's going on here? These guys are pretty quick. So maybe he's trying to extract some speed out of the car and making a couple of mistakes. So yeah, but he's kind of not really got to worry about Hedges, as he does have half a second penalty, so he'll drop potentially behind Robinson here. But yeah, Smith just needs to kind of keep it on the road, put his head down and buckle up, and maybe even pull off a fourth position there, because that's a pretty decent chunk of points too.
Yeah, and as we see, Robinson's trying to go around the outside, which will be the inside corner coming into the chicane, but he's done that well clear of Hedges, so he can run the normal racing line through the NGK chicane, through to that nicely into P5. Hedges, unfortunately, is down to P6. So like I've just tried to bring it up. I feel like this needed to be the round where Hedges needed to really maximise his chance to try and fight James for second place in the championship. But he's got himself a good run as we're looking through the secondary camera on Robinson going into turn one. He might make a move. Robinson goes a little bit too deep on the brakes there. He's compromised his entry. Hedges is going to go for a shorter line through turn one. Goes through Mercedes Arena, can't get it through, so very unfortunate for Hedges to be down the order, not where we usually see him, but back up the front. It's a very close battle between the top three, Carter, Purton and James. They're well separated at the moment. They've got themselves a huge margin over Smith. 5.2 between James and Smith, who's now 7.9 behind Carter, or 8 seconds as we see crossing the timing delta there. So you've got some interesting battle packs here. Battle pack for the podium positioning, and then the battle pack for 4th place. So if anyone's going to be getting themselves the podium, so far it looks like it's going to be one of the top 3 drivers sitting in, currently sitting 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. But it's a very long race, this one. We're only about 9.5 laps to go, and anything can happen around this track that becomes very well known to be a very tough track to keep cars on the circuit.
Yeah, it's definitely there. Oh, Smith looks like he went really conservative there. I'll try and get that on replay, but Hedges picked up a half-second penalty. I do think so. Robinson gets a run. He allows space for Robinson, and then Hedges just jams it up the inside, does a corner cut, and cops a half-second penalty in the process. So that was interesting.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're still duking it out side by side. It's incredible racing that the boys are just rubbing panels, and no one's being really sent off to the shuttle realm. So that's good to see. So that's some good old-fashioned door banging racing. Don't you agree, DJ? As we see the guys coming through, almost made it work there, but at least for none of those 2 drivers, in Smith or Hedges, they haven't put themselves into the grass. But I have a feeling that with Hedges actually trying to go for these aggressive moves, I have a feeling that he might be getting a lot of frustrations. And there you go. He's getting a bit of a switchback move as Smith on Hedges, but Hedges has got the inside line. Can hold that inside line for a little bit longer. Can Smith go for a fake move into the inside, the exit of Mercedes? He doesn't. But yeah, I have a feeling that it just might be a little bit boiling over on Hedges' end of his Car 84 MSR BL Racing Red Bull Junior. That he's just putting a little bit too much pressure on himself. And unfortunately, when you have too much, you do have a little bit of overconfidence. You just don't drive to the race conditions, unfortunately. As we see Smith in the background actually just run wide onto the gravel track. He just locked a brake on the front left, on the front right, and unfortunately that just sent him off into the gravel.
Yeah, he definitely went very deep in there, and I think problem is with these cars, if you try and push them, they'll definitely backfire. So I noticed that in practice running a couple of laps in these things, I was definitely trying to push the car a little bit, and I was like, okay, hang on a minute, you're understeering more, you're not braking. So I was definitely kind of realizing that, yeah, you can't push these things. It's kind of like the Lexus from last year, or 2021 when I ran it. So I tried to push it and it just backfired, so you kind of just got to back it off a little bit and let it roll through some of the corners. But Carter's on for a purple lap here. He's going to yank it off Purdon, so we'll keep an eye and see, because we do know what Carter's like going through that chicane. He's very conservative, so
yeah, and I've just looked on the secondary camera. Purdon went full aggressive. Carter puts a fast lap, but then that is eclipsed by Purton. So they are really duking it out, the 2 boys from WTC and MSR. Purton with a flush of the headlights, that definitely confirms that he is on the controller, and he told me that him and Hedges are on the controller. So that's the reason with the flush of the headlights, but we knew that anyway. So, but yeah, we could definitely see, like, through those onboards and through the exterior shots, the Carter's very conservative through that chicane. He's probably not just taking as much risk as what the boys behind him are, and you can definitely see now, especially like through that chicane there, through the exit of Mercedes, throughout Mercedes-Benz Arena, Purdon's a little bit more confident on the loud pedal compared to Carter at this stage, as we're not even halfway yet, and Purdon's actually pulling away from James in P3, who then has a huge gap over the drivers in 4th, which is Robinson. Liam's actually taking the position away from Hedges, so his race just goes from bad to worse, unfortunately for Hedges, down in P6, and it's definitely not the performance that we've seen Hedges in Formula 3, and then down in 7th place is Smith, after we saw that late lock-up going onto the back straight, going to the back section of the track. But Carter is just less than a second advantage over Purton as we're coming through to the back straight to the Advent Bogan before we get to the NGK chicane. let's see. Let's wait and see how he takes this chicane. Does he be a little bit more aggressive? Does he be conservative? You can see there, just running the car over the ripple strip. Yeah, more aggression there. Probably not to the extent as much as Burton. I did see an onboard there with Burton. He was very, very aggressive through that chicane there. You could definitely tell as the gap is closing between the two drivers.
Yeah, he looks to be short shifting out of the chicane, so he may be losing time there. He doesn't rev second gear out on the exit, where Burton may be doing that. I need to keep an eye on that. But yeah, I did notice he short shift pretty much as soon as he come out of the chicane. He was just like smack into third gear. So doing that, because these cars are low on power, you need all the momentum and kind of maximum amount of revs that you can get. But you know, compared to the Formula 2 and the main series car, Burton with that massive cut there, that was definitely stretching the track.
That was a massive slide I saw on the secondary camera there. Yeah, go on, continue.
But yeah, so these things are kind of like the 86s, kind of where you need to, you know, keep the mid-corner speed up, keep the revs up. You know, you're trying to get as much power, as much speed as you can, but short shifting in these cars, you know, to me, kind of not really what you want to do, but you know, each to their own, I guess. But yeah, so I think that's maybe potentially where Purden is closing the gap towards Carter. But I'll keep an eye on Purden as he goes through the chicane to see if he does. So, but yeah, you know, maybe Carter might not be too confident through the chicane. I know that when I first started racing this, I was definitely probably one of my weakest part of the circuit. Was that chicane? You know, I cut it all the time and stuff like that. So. But yeah, but he's gapped Purden by about 8/10 in that last lap, so that's definitely interesting. Looks like Purden may have had a bit of an iffy one, so I'll keep an eye on Purden as he comes through here. He makes a bit of an unlucky run. Yeah, so he didn't short shift, so maybe that's where he makes up the time. I'm not really sure, but that can be maybe one of the factors to it. But Purden getting on the green stuff there. You don't want to get on that green stuff.
Yeah, exactly, and that was very well spotted there. Like he actually, I feel like he may have taken a little bit too much entry into that chicane there. We did see the gap, I think, drop from was about 0.7 at one point, and then just spiked up to 1.1. So fine margins of trying to close in your competitor, but that's the heated rivalry that you have between Carter and Purden, and he's just. And he said to me in the background before the race weekend that he's not really worried about Carter, because obviously he's not a championship contender, as he runs very wide on the exit of the Mercedes arena. But he's not fazed by Carter winning these races, getting clean sweeps, or getting one up on person. He's just more focused about just trying to drive just to seal the championship and get himself ahead of James, and he's done that. He's 4.5 ahead of James, who is 8.3 ahead of Robinson. So his main objective is stay ahead of James, not worry about taking the victory, and just kind of like drive, to the trophy. But I guess in anything, DJ, you know, and with the online racing or anything that's virtually, you can't really just lay off the loud pedal just yet, because, you know, as we've seen it plenty of times in plenty of racing categories in track stars throughout its season, that, you know, the one word that plagues that haunts everyone's mind, which is the word disconnect. That's something that can affect a driver's confidence when it gets to the next round.
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, that's probably one main thing. And you know, GT7 at its finest is probably not a big fan of disconnects, but we did see it last week. Obviously, yourself disconnected from the Formula Trackstars race at Spa, and then Curry disconnected with 3 corners to go. So that was a massive one there from Curry, and he did take a hit in the points. But if anyone didn't see it, we actually did have a disqualification last round in the Formula 2. So Ward actually got disqualified for a massive turn 1 incident off the race start. So he took out about 5 cars, and yeah, it was definitely probably one of the biggest incidents that I've seen in quite a while. So yeah, the stewards ruled a disqualification on that one, and obviously the new ruling for the series is the disqualifications can't count towards your drop round. So that will be a 0 scoring point round for Ward in in his scoring. So yeah, just missed that there. But Hedges went to try and make a move there on Liam. But yeah, so you know. I don't think we've seen any disconnects in F3 this year, which is probably a good thing. Yeah, but yeah, so it's the drivers are doing well for themselves, and obviously being a feeder series to the F2, it gives the guys confidence. You know, the drivers are all within kind of 2-3 seconds of each other. It gives them confidence in a car, how to race, stuff like that. You know, us main series guys, Formula 2 guys, we're always happy to help. So if these guys really want some help, you know, all they need to kind of do is ask. So, you know, we're a very friendly series, and everyone's out there happy to help people. So, yeah, I think Hedges runs really deep there, but yeah, really helping these guys, you know, get their confidence up, get their racing experience up. You know, compared to I think 2021 Formula 2, you know, Elite and AM class in the Porsches, the racing has actually got a lot cleaner to what we had. So I'm very happy to see that.
Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, it's great. It's great testament to see the drivers just like really learning off each other. Obviously, you're going to have the first few rounds in any division. You know, it could be main series, could be Division 2, Division 3. Even if we get to a point where we need a 4th division, you know, the racing is never going to be picture perfect, and that's never the case in any league series around the world. But it's all about just learning about who you're racing, learning where your pace is. Try not to make too many ambitious moves. Try not to upset someone, because when you upset somebody, you kind of become a bit of a target throughout the rest of the season. But as we've seen with both Carter, Purton, James, and Hedges especially, you could just see the respect between the two guys. They're really pushing each other. They're pushing each other to the limit. They're trading fastest laps. They're trading victories, pole positions, and great battles for, you know, podiums positions for the lead. It just shows. It's just the quality that we're having with our feeder series. It just shows the drivers that patience is key, and it all comes into fruition, especially when it comes to knowing that you can compete. You can compete for podiums, you can compete for victories, and you can, especially now in Carter's case, he could be potentially etching his name into the record books as the 3rd driver in Formula 3 seasons to actually pick up a clean sweep victory.
Yeah, that was bring out the trap card of the clean sweep there. But you know, these guys are gapped nearly 5 seconds to James. So you know, these guys at the front here are definitely in their own league at the moment in this Formula 3 series. As Purton, unfortunately, has to burn a penalty when he's on a purple lap. So
I saw he was closing. It was like almost 4/10 or just under 6/10 gap between him and Carter. So the battle is actually is raging on between these two guys. They're not going to leave it out there. They're not going to give up. And Carter really gets squirrely on the exit there. So that's an opening sign for Purton to start reeling in the gap and try and break his confidence and not get a clean sweep victory. He wants to have himself and James with a clean sweep victory. As we see Carter there going inside, going outside, just trying to get rid of the toe. Purton comes through, still behind him at the start of lap 10 or 12. So 3 laps to go here, Ryan. I'm not so sure who we're going to pick out as the victor, because the racing here is going to get very intense at the conclusion of this.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be pretty spicy. But Carter pulled out 2/10 there to Purton, but now Purton's kind of crawling it back. So from noticing these guys, over the last couple of races, they definitely have their strong and weak points of tracks. So it definitely makes for interesting racing, because you know, Carter will gap Purton at one point, but then Purton will reel that back in and try and make a move, and then Carter will make a move, and it's definitely very good to see here in these series. But you know, as we know, the championship winner from this, and I do remember it's top 3, will go up into F2 for next year. So that was also a new ruling. So yeah, I think these guys may have a good time in F2. I think they will.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like Carter, Purton, and Hedges and James are going to have themselves a really good ball here. And you know, hopefully, as the GT7 evolves, we might be able to actually, hopefully, fingers crossed, be able to run the VOP no tuning sides of Formula 2 because that, I mean, that's it's a really good, obviously for yourself. Obviously, you've done both main series and Formula 2 so far in 2023. Actually, I actually brought up an interesting stat where Purden goes really deep in the chicane there. I've just caught it on the second camera. I actually brought up as a very interesting fact here that you're the first driver in Trackstars to win both a main series race and a Formula 2 race in Trackstars history. So take that to your record book.
And I broke the streak of Pat and the streak of Curry.
Exactly.
So in winning the F2 race and the main series race in the same season, I broke the winning streak that Pat had going. So he was, I think, 4 or 5 on the trot, and Curry was 3 on the trot, and I broke that too. So I've definitely come to grips with the Formula car at the moment. You know, I'm starting to be up the front and stuff like that. So, you know, the latest suspension change is Purden, my man. That's exceeding track limits by quite a country mile, my friend. The track's a bit to the right, but
he gained a little bit of time there.
He did.
0.1 there. That's very interesting there. So that's an interesting line that no one's actually exploited yet. So Purden's just really trying to exploit the limits to not get himself a penalty, but he's losing time, just getting a little bit too heavy on the loud pedal, unfortunately. So he's losing a bit of time to Carter, but it's not over yet. We're only got about 1.5 laps to go. But I think for the boys, I think going back to the point, like the top 4 in the championship, if we even see Carter potentially put himself there as a contender to race in Formula 2 next year, it'd be very interesting to see like what would be the main thing that these boys will be. What do you think like these boys might struggle with when it comes to Formula 2? They enter for the first time.
I think just car difference and getting used to the other drivers. You know, the Formula car, maybe as well getting used to the Formula car as Carter goes purple there. So we'll wait and see if he can keep this up. So yeah, the amount you can push the Formula car, you know, deep, late under brakes, early on the throttle. If you're in the right gear, you're in the wrong gear.
Carter's gone off! Oh, sorry to cut you off, DJ. Carter just went off and he took too much curb. We know him to be Mr. Consistent and very conservative through the chicane here, but too much curbing and bang, right there. Too much front aero, too much of the front car, part of the car lifting off, and that is him into the weeds, and that is him losing the lead on the second last lap here. Oh, the same happened to Purden on the second last lap in the sprint race, and unfortunately for Carter, it's happened to him. So it's role reverse between the two drivers. Purden is now taking the lead on the last lap, DJ, and currently leading Carter in position 2. James still holding on to P3, but he's closed the gap after that mistake that Carter made. But my goodness, that was a huge mistake there. And we said it earlier before, he took the chicane very conservative, but this time round, not so much.
Yeah, it looks like he just missed the apex ever so slightly there. But from what I could see, when the car bounced on the right-hand side, he picked 3rd gear, and as he got on the gas, the low torque just pulled the car out to the grass. So that 3rd gear short shift really paid him dividends there. Kind of not really what he wanted, but you know, he was definitely, as you said, Mr. Consistent. So, you know, 201, 201, 201, 201, and then he's got a 202 in there. Ran a little bit wide, obviously, and then 204 when he made a bit of a mistake. But yeah, that's definitely unfortunate. He was on for the win there. He had that. Oh!
Yeah, that just goes from bad to worse for Carter. So I don't know what happened. That's an interesting mistake that's made here. Who is Schumacher S's? What happened in this part?
Don't know, to be honest.
That is an interesting mistake there. That was very, very weird. But in that case, it's actually promoted Robertson up to P3, so there's a very little handy gift for Robertson to get himself up onto the podium. It's out of nowhere. But for the final time here, Purden's going to take the victory coming onto the Coca-Cola curve for the last time. And yeah, this is going to be a big talking point, but Purden will take the victory for the feature race and extending his championship lead, putting him in a comfortable position with one hand on the trophy. Goes to Purden, taking the victory in the sprint race. Congratulations to the MSR VL Racing driver. James comes home to Pete in position 2. Robinson, out of nowhere, will be stealing a P3 away from Carter who looked certain taking victory on 2 laps ago. But unfortunately, as we see him coming through onto the pit straight here in position 4, wow, that is not a position that where we wanted to see him, as he looks handy to be taking victory. Hedges comes through to P5. Liam will come across the finish line into position 6, and then Smith coming through to Coca-Cola for the last time in position 7. But my goodness, Ryan, that was that was a change of events here. We were looking for a last lap duke between the two boys, but it just turned out to be just one mistake there. The only mistake that Carter made throughout the race, and it became crucial.
Yeah, that was definitely an interesting one. Obviously,
Yeah,
I understood the first one. I can completely relate to that one, but that second one, um, that
I'm
I
confused
yeah.
myself.
I think
I'm,
if anything, he was maybe holding fourth gear very hot, like very high, and he was very high on the revs, and coming off the ripple strip may have unsettled the car. I don't know. I may have to look at that one again, but yeah, that was very confusing. I did not understand that at all, but yeah, yeah, I'm definitely gutted for Carter there. He had that in the bag, but
yeah.
yeah,
And I will actually say as well, as we go through the results, we'll go through the results quickly. Purton taking the victory in the feature race and the overall victory here for round 9 Trackstars Formula 3. So congratulations to Purton taking the overall and victory for the feature race. James comes through to P2. Robinson steals a P3 away from Carter, who finishes down in 4th place, 23.8 seconds behind Purton, where he was ahead by 1.2 seconds before he got into the chicane on lap 15 of 16. Hedges into P5, a round to forget, unfortunately for Hedges. Liam, the latecomer, in 6th place, and Smith, who was up as high as 4th place in the early stints of the feature race, unfortunately lost momentum and locked up through Ford Curve and locked the front right and just put himself onto the gravel trap, finishing in 7th and last place, 47.9 behind the race leader. But yeah, it's just it's a very, very interesting mistake there, and I'm literally, I'm thinking of it away. I'm just trying to think like what made him think that, what made him do what he did there, especially through the chicane. He had a very comfortable margin as well. He was on for a fastest lap as well. So maybe he was just trying to go for pride and winning and taking the fastest lap. But unfortunately for him, it was very late on in the race, and if you have a margin of like 4 or 5 seconds, you could possibly go for it. But he had 1.1 over Purton going into that chicane. So, and I was very surprised to how and why he made that mistake.
I shall stand very confused. I think, but yeah, maybe we might have to ask him the question. But yeah, until then, congratulations on the win there for Purden. I do believe that may potentially be a round win for him there. So more than likely
Correct.
extending his lead to James. But
Someone clip that, please.
please don't. But yeah, so big congratulations there to the podium getters and all that. But for now, I think that's round 9 done, mate, and we've got one more round to go. So drop rounds will be
Absolutely.
applied. Now after this round, so it's all to play for coming into the end round. So well,
Ab-
I'm interested to see how it ends.
Yeah. Oh, mate, I'm interested as well. I think we have a feeling that Purden's definitely got one hand on the trophy, especially through going into Brands Hatch, which would be a very, very tricky track to get all the lines perfect. Because once you go off center, the car's just going to spit you onto the Armco. So we'll wait and see. That is next week. I think we'll just do a quick summary of the driver of the day. We'll give that. For myself, I have a feeling I will be giving that. I will give it to Carter. I mean, I feel like he was a little bit unlucky in that last race, but he drove a clinical race, perfect race in the sprint race, getting that move done on Purton, and he almost looked certain to taking victory in that feature race. Unfortunately, a mistake on his end um, on that second last lap would have actually, yeah, definitely hurt his chances of getting the overall victory and being the third driver to get a clean sweep in Formula 3. But yeah, but I guess in a way he does get my commentator's driver of the day at least. So some sort of little reward for could have been a great race for him and a great round as well.
Yeah, I'll add to that there. Top job there from Carter. Done well. But yeah, I think he would have had it in the bag, but that's racing, I guess. And unfortunately, it was just in his grasp, and he missed it. But unfortunate, but that's racing, I guess. But until then, I shall zoot out of the comp box, and I got to go into my F2 car because I'm up next, and I'll leave the streaming to you, my friend. So until then, thank you everyone for joining for round 9 of the Formula 3 series, and we shall catch you next week for not next week, sorry. It is next week for the Formula 3. So next week for the final round for the Formula 3 series. So we will crown a champion next weekend. But yeah, until then, thank you obviously. Thank you to Nick Patasso and Spud P666 as always, and we shall catch